Welcome to Flow with the Grow. I'm your host, Sophia, a health and fitness professional, positivity distributor, and a real-life human being with real-life challenges. Every Tuesday, you'll hear my honest conversations on the day-to-day highs and lows that life teaches us, as well as bring you actionable tips that you can implement to improve your health and wellness journey. This podcast will empower you to flow with the inevitable setbacks of life. You will learn what it means to flow with the grow, see through a lens of optimism, and navigate your way to living your best life. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Now let's jump into your daily dose of positivity and growth. All right, I get it. You want to cut ties with the scale, but you're not sure how. Or maybe you don't know why you need to cut ties with the scale. I have that one in a separate episode, a previous episode that I did a while ago, and I'm going to link that in the show notes because if you're not really sure why you should cut ties with the scale or things to consider, I'm going to leave that for the episode that I did in the past. And I'm going to leave this one specifically for how to cut ties with the scale. I did it in these 5 steps. Just a little background. When I was in high school, I was massively tied to the number on the scale. I stepped on it every single morning, midday, during the night, like really as much as I could. And every time I went into the bathroom, I would step on the scale. And my goal in my mindset, I wanted it to see it go down. And when it didn't go down, I was frustrated. And when it went down, when I got to my lowest of 109, I celebrated that. And I didn't know at the time would affect my mindset, my mental health, my relationship with my food and my body for the next 10 or more years of my life to come. But I'm also proud to say that as of present right now, I have cut ties with the scale, and let me tell you, it is freeing. So damn freeing. It's much lighter. I'm happier. I have a much better, in turn, because of doing this, I've also cultivated a better relationship with my body and with food. And I'm still in a learning process here. I feel like I'm always going to be learning and working on this. But it took a long time. It took time. So you need to remember that. And that will come in. I'm going to mention in step number 5 what that tip is going to be. But just know that I struggled with it for a long time. I worked on it for a really long time, going back and forth, up and down. And by working to cut ties with the scale and in completing and doing these 5 steps, this will lead to a healthier, more freeing relationship with food, your body, and shifting your focus, shifting your mind. And this in turn will also help you create consistency within your health and fitness journey, which the past couple episodes have been a lot about, the theme has kind of been consistency, but this will only help you in that. And more importantly, it'll help you with the relationship you have with, again, food, your body, and movement, exercise. Step number 1, awareness of how you feel when you step on the scale and when you see the number on the scale. That has to be step 1. Become aware of when you see that number, what goes through your mind? How does your body feel? And become aware that it is a negative relationship with the scale. Become aware that it is only a detriment to your life and your mind and to yourself. Once you become aware of how you feel, once you become aware that you need to cut ties with the scale, once you become aware that it is only harmful to you no matter what the number is, then you can start to take action to create change. Number 2, decide. Decide to not step on the scale or any type of scale for that matter. I'm going to differentiate this quick because I decided to not step on a scale for a while, but at Anytime Fitness, the gym I worked at, we have what's called an in-body scan, an in-body scale, and that showed body weight and muscle mass and body fat. So while I knew in my mind that, yes, I am now able to see what's body fat and what's muscle, I realized and I became aware that I thought I had cultivated a better relationship with the scale and it was fine, but I became aware that no matter what the number was, it only put a pressure on me to have those numbers, have the muscle mass go up and the body fat go down. Not necessarily the scale weight, but I wanted the numbers and I put pressure on myself to have those numbers, the body fat again go down, the muscle mass go up. And it was only doing me harm. It put pressure on me. It was not healthy. It was a negative feeling in my body. I did not feel good about it. I cared way too much. So that awareness brought me to a decision. And I decided to not step on the InBody scan or a scale for as long as it took, for as long as I knew for myself that when I was ready, I would step on it again. And only at a time where I would be like 99.9% positive that the number wouldn't matter anymore. I'm going to get back to that in a second. You also have to decide that you will no longer let the number on the scale hold power over your happiness, hold power over your life and the decisions that you make, hold power over your self-worth. You decide that you will no longer let the scale, the number on the scale, hold power over your relationship with your self-respect, your self-love. And you have to decide that it's no longer going to serve you and that it hasn't served you in any way. Now, I'm not going to say you have to decide for X amount of days, months, years, because this has to come from within. This has to come from you. Only you can decide this. But I'm going to share with you my story with this. And then, again, you can just decide for yourself. After I became aware that how I felt when I stepped on the InBody scan or any scale, after I became aware that I needed to make a change, I decided to not step on a scale or any type of scale, including that InBody scan. The decision just came to me like it was just a no-brainer and it was a non-negotiable. That's what was going to happen. When I decided this, I don't think I even set a time frame for myself. I just said, I think I honestly thought I was never going to step on a scale again. Or as long as if I considered stepping on a scale, if I was fearful that it was going to be detrimental or if I knew it was going to be detrimental and harmful, I just wasn't going to do it. But I kind of just made an internal decision that it was going to be basically for life, that I wasn't going to step on the scale because I knew it really just didn't serve me. I wanted to focus on other things and I wanted to see what would happen, how I would feel, what changes I could make without needing a number or without needing to know what my muscle was, what my body fat was, any of that. So fast forward, I didn't step on the scale for at least a year. It might have been even a little over a year. I remember thinking I had worked through so much and I had felt like I cultivated a much better relationship with food and with my body and with working out. And it was a lot of decisions I make are intuitive. And just like the decision was to not step on the scale was intuitive, it was a feeling, it was a gut feeling. I knew that when and if I was ready to step on the scale at some point, the feeling would come to me and the decision would be intuitive. I would just know. Much like a lot of things in my life, which if you've been listening to the podcast, I've talked about that before. But anyways, I knew it would be an intuitive feeling and decision. And it was one day, it just kind of dawned on me, came to me. It was like a gut feeling that I should just step on the scale just to see where I'm at and not just a normal scale. It really doesn't matter if I step on a normal scale, but I wanted to step on the InBody to show muscle, body fat, all that, just to see where I was at. And I remember this light feeling of just go for it. And this intuitive feeling of it'll be okay. You are ready. That's what came to me. And I did it. I wasn't fearful. I was excited. I knew that whatever it was in me, just knew that it wasn't going to affect me in any harmful, negative way. So I stepped on the InBody scan. I saw my scale weight. And again, I felt light and I felt like it just was what it was. That was the number. That was it. It didn't mean anything to me. And then when the sheet printed out and it was muscle and body fat and I was looking over it, I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. And really, I don't really know exactly the numbers. I don't think much changed, or if anything, maybe I gained a little bit of muscle and lost a little bit of body fat. I don't really even know. It doesn't even matter. But I just remember being so happy and joyful that number on the scale, those numbers in no way affected me. I did not feel pressure on myself to do better. I didn't have pressure on myself, or I didn't feel guilty, or I didn't feel bad for stepping on it. I didn't feel bad for where my numbers were. It just was almost like, it was like I was reading something in passing and had no effect. And so to me, that was a huge win. And I realized that I was like, oh my gosh, the reason this happened was because I decided to not step on the scale. And it was more than a year. And in doing so, I was focusing on other things. And this leads me to step number 3. And that's to focus on daily, non-scale related wins and efforts and changes. For the length of time that I wasn't stepping on the scale, I started subconsciously, I was not thinking about what number I was at. It forced me to look at the non-scale victories. It forced me to think about what things were going well. What was I improving in other areas of my life and of my health and fitness, whether it was within my workouts, feeling stronger, maybe I was eating differently or focusing on not restricting. I was trying to work on a better relationship with my body and the thoughts that I thought to myself, and cultivating self-respect. And in that length of time, and me focusing on other means of progress, and me focusing on other results, other benefits and improvements, the results was a better relationship with exercise and food and my body and my mindset and my mental health. Like, it all slowly improved over time. Yes, there were ups and downs, as we all have. I had days where I fell back into my old past habits and my old past ways of thinking, but I was more aware of that, and then I could make a decision to change that way of thinking. But it all slowly, overall, improved over time. So that number 3 step, again, is to focus on those non-scale related wins, efforts, changes, improvements, and start focusing on the way that you're talking within yourself to yourself, like changing those thoughts and practicing changing those thoughts on the daily. And maybe some examples, if you're unsure of what those non-scale victories are, would be maybe your form is improving with a certain lift or exercise or movement pattern. Maybe you're not as winded walking to the store or going up and down stairs. Maybe it's easier to carry your kid or pick something up. Maybe you have less pain. Maybe you have more energy. Maybe you drank more water today. Maybe you said no to a food that you knew was not going to make you feel good, and you chose a food that was a bit more nutritious. Maybe instead of binging on all these foods, you allowed yourself to have a couple cookies at that gathering, and you didn't feel guilty or bad about it. Maybe you're starting to realize that your body is strong in every season of life, no matter what it looks like. These non-scale victories can come mentally, emotionally, physically, but you have to actively think about and notice these changes every day. Some days might be harder to recognize, but there's always something. The fact that you woke up and got out of bed, like, that is a win. You have to choose to think about those things, and you have to actively find those things in your day, but they're always, always there. Number 4, accept. Accept that cutting ties with the scale probably won't happen overnight. In fact, you may think it'll never work for you. You might think that okay, and here's a tip. If you have the scale around the house, either, number 1, throw it away, get rid of it, or have someone hide it. Just make sure that take out the easiness that it would be to have it to step on the scale. Like, if you go in the bathroom and it's there, you're going to always be constantly trying to step on that scale. It's going to be harder for you to just not step on it. But you can also see it as a challenge to yourself to just not do it, because then that way Like, I think for me, since I was at the gym every day and I saw the InBody scan, sometimes I was like, ooh, I kind of want to maybe see where I'm at. But then I realized what I was doing and why I was doing it, and that it's not going to serve me. I'm just not going to do it. So you could see it as a way to challenge yourself, or you could just get rid of it completely. So you must accept that cutting ties with the scale probably won't happen overnight. And you may think it'll never work for you, and you might be drawn to it more than some days. And maybe you think, well, it'll work for a certain amount of time, and then bam, you're right back to caring about it. And this is going to be trial and error, because maybe it'll take you a year, maybe less time, maybe more time. And when you decide that it maybe is the time for you to step on it, and it's, again, harmful to you, or it's harmful to your mind, or it brings you down, then you know that you just need to go a longer time without stepping on that scale until you fully know, or you just never do again. Everyone's goals are different. Everyone is different. This is what worked for me. But my main point is that you have to accept that it's probably not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time, especially if you've had these ties with the scale for years, for a long time. It might take years for you to cut ties. And number 5, practice. Practicing something means you're going to mess up. It means that there's going to be challenges that come your way. It's not going to be easy, but practicing it day in and day out will help you to be more successful. And practice doesn't always mean perfect, but practice means progress. It's a practice that's going to take time and decisions and a focus and an active, conscious awareness and thinking. Now you can take this into your day-to-day life and use these 5 steps however you think it'll work for you. Maybe doing all 5, maybe taking 1 or 2 of them, or maybe taking all of them and implementing them into your action plan for how you will cut ties with the scale. If you're someone who you're listening to this, maybe you've stopped listening to this by now, but maybe you are, and the scale really does nothing for you. It is just a means of progress, and it doesn't do any good, any bad. Like, it just kind of is what it is. Great. That's awesome. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. And I wish that more people would get to that point. But I'm speaking to those who, much like me, have struggled with this inanimate object that we call a scale. So here are those 5 steps quickly as a recap. Number 1, awareness of how you feel when you step on the scale and when you see that number on the scale. Number 2, decide to not step on the scale or any type of scale for a certain amount of time, or just decide to not set a time and decide to just not step on it. And decide that you will no longer let the number on the scale hold power over you. Number 3, focus on non-scale victories, other life wins and efforts and changes every single day. Number 4, accept that cutting ties with the scale will probably not happen overnight. And number 5, practice. If you're listening to this, keep practicing. Believe in yourself. I believe in you. It can happen. And it is a much freer, lighter, more effortless way of living. And you will cultivate a better, healthier, more freeing relationship in turn with food, your body, movement, and everything. It's a much more joyful way to live, if you ask me. And that's that. Share this with someone who needs to hear this advice and encouragement if they are someone who, or if you know of someone who needs to cut ties with the scale. All right, that's it. I love you. Thank you again for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, week, weekend. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Flow with the Grow. I'll see you next week for your daily dose of positivity and growth.